It's changing everything about what we're like as consumers. For the first time ever, I'm in absolute control of the content I want to bring in. I no longer sit passively in a pew listening to a sermon. I no longer read a newspaper that a journalist has created. I can actually contribute to the conversation. 70% of the new generation has published original content on the web. They're getting engaged and they're getting involved. These are the people that you're going to have in meeting rooms and you go, I'm going to sit here at this podium and talk to you all day. They don't want to be talked to all day. They have paparazzi now, this new generation, and every day their life is photographed by their friends and they upload it on Facebook. They send out a text, they want an immediate feedback. They put up a picture, they want an immediate comment. They go to work, they don't want a review after a year. They want to know the next day, how am I doing? It's a different world in terms of how we communicate. Put teens in a room, 15% of them would prefer to text than talk, sitting beside each other. And if you happen to be in the room as a parent, it goes up to the high 60s. This new generation, less than half will break up a relationship or resign face to face. It's a whole different world in the way we're communicating. It's changing everything. It's a massive perfect storm for organizations. I can't get the attention the way I used to. My brands are competing as commodities. I'm finding more often than not on price. I'm not sure which way to go, where to head, what's my strategies going forward. It's chaotic. And if you're an organization trying to compete, the clients that you're doing business with, again, not-for-profit, through to business or business to consumer, you have to realize that if they're going to win, they have to, what got them to where they are today is not going to get them to where they need to go. They have to do three things incredibly well. They have to get faster at responding to the needs of the marketplace. They have to get better at the speed by which they launch and position their brands, their products, their services. And they got to get more efficient. They got to take the non-value-added expenses out of their business so they have the resources capable of funding where they need to go. So you go, geez, why did we hire this guy as a speaker? All he's talking about is the perfect storm. Well, let me tell you about the perfect opportunity. Because you can cut your way to cost for growth for a very temporary way. But if you want to win in this marketplace, the only way you can do is by harnessing your human capital. By getting people to believe in your vision. That you can animate it in a way that people go, I want to be part of it. Kennedy did it in the 60s when the Americans were losing the space race by saying, we will put a man on the moon and return him back safely by the end of the decade. And all of a sudden, educational institutions and engineers and nutritionists and psychologists and everybody came together for that vision. Steve Jobs did it by saying, we're going to make technology transparent. We're not about gadgets. We're about putting 1,000 tunes in your pocket. It's a great story about animation and vision. It happened with this guy that was walking through, a hiker, been on a very long hike, and he stumbled on a rock quarry. He went up to the first person, he said, what are you doing? The guy gave him that, are you a moron? I'm cutting rock. Kept going, and he went to another person and said, what are you doing? The person said, I'm cutting blocks. Went up to a third person, this woman, shining eyes, animated, doing the same job, and said, what are you doing? She said, I'm part of a team that's building a great cathedral. Part of a team that's building a great cathedral. And if organizations are going to win, they have to put their vision out in a way that have people come together and say, I'm part of a team that's building a great cathedral. There's another story that I think tells this so well. It happened just after World War II. If you could imagine, it wasn't that long ago, and mankind at the time had never flown supersonic. They'd had jet airplanes, but they hadn't flown supersonic. And in fact, if you read all the negative energy like we have to deal with 24 hours today in this CNN culture, all the people were saying it can't be done. Material won't hold out. You'll go through a black hole. You could create the equivalent of a nuclear bomb by doing it. But there's some people that came together and had their own golden cathedral. And they were called the right stuff. And they were engineers and mechanics and pilots that really believed their destiny was to change history. And one day, Chuck Yeager broke the sound barrier. And here's what he said in his book at that moment that it happened. Just imagine that you're in this plane trying to do something no one has ever done with engineering and technology and no computers the way they have now. And this is what he wrote at the moment he changed history. The faster I got, the smoother the flight. I looked at the gauge as it approached Mach 1, and then it broke through. And for the first time ever, mankind was flying supersonic. Yet it was a perfectly paved speedway. It was a poke-through Jell-O. Grandma could be sitting beside me sipping lemonade. Only later, much later, did I realize the barrier had never been in the sky. It had always been in our head, our heart, and our hands. Organizations need to have their culture believe. They need to have their culture believe that where they're going is destiny, is the ability to make history. And the only way they're going to do it is not through Facebook, not through emails, not through heavy-handed sticks. It's by bringing their people together. Bringing their people together so they can start feeling the energy of their organization. Meetings are paramount to the success of an organization going forward. The issue that you're facing, though, is that your clients, and I'm sure you've experienced it this year, have moved their mindset from spending money, I am hired to spend my company's money to put on a meeting, to now having to invest the money. And when you move from spending to investing, think of yourself. If I gave you $500 to go out and spend, you'd be so happy and you'd spend it. But if I said, you have my $500 and you're responsible for investing it, it changes the entire decision-making process. Because now you're responsible for a return on investment. So here's what I would do if I was you. Here's how I would approach the business of meetings if I was in your shoes. First of all, I'd stop selling stuff. I wouldn't be selling my hotel, my location, my venue, my culture, my province. I wouldn't be selling my experience as a meeting planner. Who cares? There's so much of it out there. You know, I'll give you an example. If you're a golfer, and I know we were talking last night about golf, and you wanted to get to be a better golfer, you'd interview 5 golf pros, equivalent of meeting planners, and say, and the first 4 of them would talk about their experience and how many years in the business and the kind of meetings they produced. And one person might look at you and you go, look, you can check out my credentials. But if you're committed at a level that I'm committed, I will take 6 strokes off your game in the next 4 months. And the question that would come out of your mouth would be how. And you want your customers engaged with the question of how. How can you help me? How can you help enable where I need to take this organization? How can you help me animate my vision, harness my human capital? How can you help me realize the power and potential of the resources I have available to me? Because if you get people talking about how, you're talking about their future, not what you do for a living. If you get them talking about where they're going,